I didn't know I was killing him until week 7. I made the smoothie every morning for 11 weeks. Same time, same recipe, same smile on my face when I handed it to him. And when I found out, I kept making it for 4 more days. The first time I walked into Carolyn Ashford's kitchen, I almost cried. I'm not being dramatic. After 3 years in restaurant kitchens where the head chef threw pans and the line cooks ran on cocaine, I walked into a room with 12-foot ceilings, Italian marble countertops, and a La Cornue range that cost more than my car. It was the most beautiful kitchen I'd ever seen. And it was mine. Caroline hired me in March. Private chef, 2 employers, herself and her husband, Richard. The salary was $18,000 a month for cooking 2 meals a day. I almost laughed when my agent told me. And I'd spent 5 years at Le Cordon Bleu and another 4 clawing my way up restaurant kitchens, burning my hands and my relationships in the process. I was 34. I had a breakdown the previous November. Couldn't sleep, couldn't cook, couldn't do anything for 3 weeks. My therapist called it burnout. I called it the end of everything I thought I was. Caroline Ashford was the answer to a prayer I didn't know I'd made. She was 52, elegant without trying, with the kind of quiet confidence that came from never having to fight for anything. Pharmaceutical heiress. $4 billion, inherited when her father died. She wore it the way some people wear expensive coats, effortlessly, without drawing attention to it. When she walked me through the kitchen on my first day, she touched the countertops like they were alive. She asked about my training, my influences, what I'd loved about food. She listened, actually listened. I couldn't remember the last time someone had done that. Richard was different. He was 58, thin in a way that suggested he'd once been broader, with gray at his temples and hands, that trembled slightly when he reached for his coffee. He had a heart condition. Caroline explained it to me on my first day with genuine concern in her voice. He was on medication. He tired easily. He needed routine. He's fragile, she said, and the way she said it made me think she loved him. The smoothies started the second week. Caroline sat me down at the kitchen island with a printed recipe, handwritten actually in her careful cursive. A morning smoothie for Richard. Heart health. Specific powders. Specific timing. She'd had the ingredients sourced from a private supplier because she couldn't find them locally. 2 containers arrived in unmarked boxes. No labels I recognized. Supplements, she told me. Specialized. Made for his condition. This is the most important thing you'll make in this kitchen, she said. More important than dinner. More important than anything. I nodded. I was a chef, not a doctor. I followed the recipe exactly. The first morning I handed Richard his smoothie, he looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Thank you, James." That was it. 2 words. But something in his voice, a heaviness, a resignation, stayed with me longer than it should have. I told myself I was reading too much into it. By week 4, Richard was disappearing, weight dropping off him. And some mornings I'd find him gripping the breakfast table with both hands, knuckles white, like the chair was the only thing keeping him upright. The nausea came in waves, a sudden tightening around the eyes, fork set down mid-meal, quiet excuses. Caroline told the staff it was his heart, the best doctor's money could buy. I wanted to believe her, but there were things that didn't add up. The private supplier who shipped those unmarked containers, I looked them up that night. No real website, just a landing page with a phone number. When I called, the line went dead after 2 rings. I called back. Dead again. I checked the shipping labels. No return address. Just a P.O. box in Delaware. I told myself it was a boutique operation. Niche supplements. Not everything had to be on Amazon. Then I heard Caroline on the phone. I was passing her study after an evening walk. Door cracked. Her voice low, measured. "The timeline is holding," she said. "He won't last the summer if we stay consistent." I froze. The accounts are already structured. I just need him to... She saw me through the gap. Her expression didn't change, not a flicker. She smiled, and that warm, practiced smile, and said into the phone, "I'll call you back." Then asked if I needed anything before bed. I said no, went to my quarters, stared at the wall. The timeline could mean anything: a renovation, a business deal, something I didn't understand about billionaires. I repeated this for 2 more weeks. The documentary changed everything. It was a Tuesday night. I was in my room, half watching true crime on my laptop. The kind of thing I'd never have watched before this job. No, but something about the house made me restless in the evenings. A woman in Ohio poisoned her husband over 8 months. Arsenic. Gradual doses. Undetectable. The doctors kept treating him for heart failure because that's what it looked like. I sat up straight. The symptoms on screen: fatigue, nausea, weight loss, trembling, yellowed skin. I'd been watching them happen in the room above me every single day. I closed the laptop, opened it again, watched the segment twice more. Then I didn't sleep. The next morning I made the smoothie. I handed it to Richard. He thanked me. He drank it. I watched him and felt something crack open inside my chest. A cold, spreading fracture that I couldn't close. I started testing the ingredients that afternoon. I was careful. And I photographed the containers Carolyn had given me. The unmarked powders, the specific supplements. I set aside a small amount of each one, sealed them in plastic bags, labeled them with dates. I hid them in the back of a storage closet in my quarters. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. I just knew I needed proof before I could trust what my gut was telling me. The hardest part was the waiting. Every morning I made the smoothie. Every morning Richard drank it, and every morning I told myself, tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll have answers. Tomorrow I'll know for sure. I was giving him poison with my own hands, while I waited to confirm it. I sent the samples to an independent lab 2 weeks later, using a fake name I'd created. Turnaround, 5 business days. On day 3, I photographed every unmarked container in that kitchen. I measured the powder ratios, documented the exact recipe with timestamps. If Caroline noticed anything missing, I'd say I was adjusting portion sizes. She didn't notice. She never came into the kitchen when I was working anymore. 5 days where Richard got thinner, weaker, closer to whatever end she'd planned. The results came back on a Friday. Arsenic. Trace amounts in the powder, consistent with chronic low-dose exposure. I sat in my car in the lab parking lot for 20 minutes, engine off, hands on the wheel. The late afternoon sun was warm on my face, and I couldn't feel it. It was real. She was poisoning him, and I had been the one handing him the glass. I tried to quit the next Monday. I found Caroline in the kitchen, my kitchen, I still thought of it that way, and told her I needed to move on. I kept my voice steady. I didn't say why. I just said I had personal reasons, that I appreciated the opportunity, that I could work 2 weeks' notice. She didn't react the way I expected. She set down the coffee she was holding, tilted her head slightly, the way she did when she was considering something. Then she smiled. Not the warm smile, a different one, quieter, and said, "Sit down, James." I sat. She poured 2 glasses of wine, even though it was 10 a.m. She slid one toward me. I didn't touch it. "I know you're troubled," she said. "I can see it in you. You've been distracted for weeks." My throat tightened. "I want to help you stay," she continued. She said it the way you'd discuss the weather. "I'd like to offer you $500,000, a bonus, for staying on and continuing to make Richard's smoothie exactly as I've taught you. No changes, and no questions." The number hung in the air between us. $500,000. I was 34 years old. I had $22,000 in savings and student debt I wouldn't finish paying off for another 6 years. I had no restaurant to go back to, no reputation left in the industry, no safety net of any kind. And she was offering me enough money to disappear and start over anywhere in the world. "Think about it," she said. She finished her wine and left the kitchen like we'd been discussing a recipe adjustment. I thought about it. God help me. I thought about it seriously. $500,000. Richard was already dying, arsenic in his system for months before I arrived. If I left, she'd find another chef. The outcome wouldn't change, only whether I had enough money to rebuild my life or spent the next decade trying to forget what I knew. Police? Now a burned-out chef with a breakdown on his record, fake name lab results, and zero legal standing against a billionaire with lawyers who could bury me in an afternoon. Confront her? I'd already seen what happened when she felt cornered. The calm, the calculation. The offer wasn't generosity, it was a warning with a dollar sign. I stayed 4 more days, made the smoothie, handed it to Richard, watched him drink it. The night everything broke open, Richard collapsed. I was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner when I heard it. A heavy thud from upstairs. Then Caroline's voice, sharp and urgent in a way I'd never heard. I ran to the stairs. Richard was on the landing, body convulsing. Foam at the corner of his mouth. His eyes rolled back, hands clawing at the carpet. Caroline was already on the phone, but not calling 911. A private number. A doctor arrived 40 minutes later in a black sedan. No ambulance, no sirens. I watched from the hallway as he administered something, checked vitals, and left without a word. Richard stabilized. Caroline thanked the doctor, closed the front door, and stood in the foyer for a long moment. Perfectly still. Hands clasped in front of her. Then, she walked past me toward her study without a word. I sat on the kitchen floor at 3 a.m. The house was silent. Richard was asleep upstairs, alive for now, the poison still working. Caroline was in her room. The $500,000 was still on the table. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, stared at the balance, $22,487. Then I closed it, and I thought about Elena, Richard's daughter from his first marriage. I'd met her once, a woman in her late 20s, quiet, Joan with her father's eyes. She'd visited for an afternoon and sat with Richard in the garden while he could still sit comfortably. I watched her hold his hand. I watched her laugh at something he said gently. The way you laugh when you're trying to make someone feel normal. She loved him. Really loved him. I thought about her finding out, not that her father had died, but that he'd been murdered one smoothie at a time by the woman he lived with, and that the man who made the smoothie knew, had known for weeks, had taken the money and stayed quiet. I couldn't do it. Not because I was brave, not because I had some moral awakening in that moment. I simply could not live inside that story. It would have hollowed me out completely. I chose Elena. I chose Richard. I chose the version of myself I could still recognize in the mirror. Now, I didn't go to the police first. I went to Elena. We met at a cafe in Brooklyn, far enough from the estate that I felt safe. I brought everything, the lab results, the photographs, the timeline written on a legal pad. Richard's declining health mapped against 11 weeks of smoothies. Caroline's $500,000 offer. All of it. I slid the folder across the table. Elena opened it, started reading. Her face didn't change much, a slight tightening around the jaw, a stillness in her eyes. But her hands were shaking by page 3. When she finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then, she looked up at me. How long have you known? 2 weeks, I said. I'm sorry, I should have. I knew something was wrong, she said. I just didn't have proof. She didn't cry. Didn't thank me. She simply folded the documents carefully and put them in her bag. Then she looked at me and said, I'll take care of the rest. She did. Elena contacted Richard's attorney first, then the FBI. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Caroline was arrested on a Thursday morning. By Friday, it was everywhere. Every news outlet, every headline, the pharmaceutical heiress, the arsenic, the private chef who blew it open. I gave my full statement, cooperated with everything, testified about the smoothie recipe, about Caroline's offer, about watching Richard decline. I didn't hide any of it. Not even the days I knew and stayed silent. Not even the part where I almost took the money. The twist came out during the investigation, and it was the part that broke me. Richard knew. He had known what Caroline was doing. For months, possibly longer. He knew the smoothies were poisoned, and he drank them anyway. The prenup Caroline had insisted on before their marriage left him with nothing if he left her. No money, no home, no access to any of the fortune that was technically hers. He was a man who had once run a finance empire, reduced to complete dependence on a woman who was slowly killing him. And he had calculated, coldly, rationally, that slow death was preferable to the alternative. When I learned this, I sat in my car outside the FBI field office and put my head in my hands. I had spent weeks agonizing over whether to save him. Turns out, he hadn't wanted to be saved. Caroline Ashford is awaiting trial. Richard is recovering in a private medical facility. The arsenic exposure stopped the moment I left and Elena intervened. He'll live. So, whether he wanted to or not. I turned down the $500,000. I have nothing to show for 11 weeks inside that house, except a statement on file and a scar I carry quietly. I'm not the hero of the story. I want to be clear about that. I made the smoothie for 11 weeks. I knew for 4 days and said nothing. I sat in a parking lot and seriously considered taking $500,000 to help a woman murder her husband. The only reason I didn't is because I couldn't look at Elena Ashford and lie to her face. Now I cook for myself. Small meals, simple things. I don't make smoothies anymore. I don't think I ever will again.
James Chun made a smoothie every morning for 11 weeks. For the last 4, he knew it was killing someone. The part that destroys me? Richard knew too. The man being poisoned chose to keep drinking because leaving meant losing everything. James didn't save a man who wanted saving. He just couldn't live with the alternative. That's the truth. If this story got under your skin, good. It's supposed to. Every week on Billionaire Exposed, we go inside the moments where employees face impossible choices and find out what they're really made of. The lies, the silence, the decisions no one talks about. Right now, we're building this channel, and at 5,000 subscribers, I'm dropping the darkest story I've ever written. Worse than this one. And I need to know there's an audience that can handle it. If this story got under your skin, subscribe, because the next one goes deeper. See you soon.